Once upon a time, you went to a website and you said, hey, this is what I want, and then you got what you want. Was there that once upon a time, or am I dreaming it up? I'm frustrated, as you can see. I'm trying to find a good new email marketing tool, and I've gone to three, four such sites this morning, and they all are like, it's so overwhelming. They're just telling me so many things that they can do, but I'm just thinking, can you do the basic stuff? Like, can you get my emails across to more people easily?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want to know.
Yeah. And it's interesting you bring up email marketing because when I think about the ecosystem in which they operate, right? So today they have to promise automation, they have to promise A/B testing, they have to promise the moon and the stars and then some, I guess, because everyone else is doing that. And that's the domain in which they're kind of operating. But it's interesting that somewhere in doing all that, the most basic consumer need, which is to send emails with ease, seems to have gotten lost. And honestly, Subha, I don't know if I have a recommendation for you there because I was looking up MailChimp, ConvertKit, and Omniscient. And all of them are saying different things, but I don't know if any of them really make a compelling use case in your case or mine for that matter.
Yeah, like, this whole kind of, see, I landed on some of these with some effort, right? I did a Google search, and I asked a few people, and I made a list of three, four tools that others use. I actually even looked at the emails that I got, um, and newsletters, etc., and tried to figure out which tool they've used, right? So I've put in the effort, and then I'm landing on this page, and it leaves me like wanting to just fly off from there immediately.
You've just opened a can of worms. So let's discuss that in a little more detail without going too gross. Welcome to the Damn Good Marketing Podcast. Today, we're discussing the pages where we land, the landing pages. The utopian dream of every marketer is to convert everybody who lands on a landing page. But what does a landing page mean? What does conversion mean? And how do you measure and manage all of this when you also have a business to run? Let's discuss that.
Yes, let's please. Because, I mean, now that you've called it out and it's about landing pages, it's a struggle for me too, for my business. Like, what is a landing page? Like, every page is a landing page, right? You can land on it, can't you?
Yeah, in that sense, you should definitely be thinking about these pages in that context. Say, for example, your homepage is a landing page, right? Everybody is net going to land upon it at some point in time. Any products, any solutions that you have on offer, say you have a nice little package for how your coaching sessions are offered, for example, that has to be showcased in a way that makes sense to somebody. I think the nuance that sometimes we miss when it comes to landing pages is that they can be consumed independently, right? And we always think that somebody coming to the page where maybe they'll read a case study, maybe they'll be interested in my video, but you have to work with the assumption that they will probably not be interested in any of those things. And if that was just the one piece of content they were looking at with no context, like you said, you could have landed up there from a Google search, right? It could have been a sponsored ad. And if what I was looking for and the ad and the page don't match each other, then it doesn't matter what else I have to say because I'm already in trouble. Right. Say in your case, Subha, I'm assuming you Googled easy to use email marketing tool, right?
Correct.
Easy to use email software, one of those things. Now, your ads will definitely say the easiest email software in creation. But the moment you land on the page, that promise is lost. Right. And that's where I think landing pages become a little bit of that beast that is difficult to rein in. Because as small businesses, there is only a limited amount of capacity in terms of development resources and tools, right? So you can't build a page for everything. It's as simple as that. So how do you still kind of, make conversions work in that context, really?
Yeah, because the conversion, that's ultimately the goal, right? If I've got somebody who's taken the effort to find me and find my website and land on one of the pages, or has been kind enough to click a link that I've shared somewhere, then you want them to have the experience, one that's positive, etc., and tells them who you are. But you also I think somewhere want that to convert into something meaningful and valuable for you and them.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where I think thinking is so much, and that's where I think thinking about it is so much more important than we give it uh, priority, right? In the sense that if I am a service provider, and if I am a provider of services that are a little more individually driven, like you, Subha, are a coach, right? If I work with you, it's probably going to be a long term engagement. I want to know whether I'll find resonance with you, whether it's going to be a synergetic relationship in that sense. So, what I am probably going to be looking for is social proof, right? Like, what have other people who are serving in similar functions like me said about you? What experience do you bring? Do I see the gravity of what you're trying to do in the work that I'm consuming from you? So then I don't really see the need for a landing page that opens with unleash your full potential with the help of a coach. Right? It's understood that that's what I'm trying to do. Right? Then comes, okay, can I put the social proof front and center? Can I put some of my past work, anonymized, of course, front and center? But on the other end of that spectrum, if you think about it, other tech products, the platforms, they're all getting us to sign up in the sense that the landing page, so to speak, is serving as the salesperson, right? They have to do the job of selling, right? By the end of it, the idea is that you've taken a demo or you've signed up for a free trial or whatever it is. And that admittedly is a much harder thing to do, because from the beginning, you have started at, first there was Shantanu, and then you have to the whole epic has to kind of, pan out in the span of that one landing page, which is, I think, things start going south, right? Because the temptation to say everything is very strong. I find that to be that's my biggest grouse with a lot of landing pages. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it genuinely overwhelms. And like you said, if there's that big fat form, which the worst type is when it comes as a pop-up, like they don't let you see anything else till you tell them, who you are and where you were born and everything. Or there's this kind of constant attempt to get you to sign up to something. Without even letting me experience who you are, what you've done, and why it should be good enough for me to search for that sign up, or say,
Correct.
Let me see a demo, or call me and let's talk, or whatever it is.
It exists, it's just not intrusive, really. That's what. And you're right, there are some contact forms which are longer than the page itself. So I mean, that's definitely a no, I think. Don't put a contact form that requires you to fill as much detail as you would for an Aadhaar application. It's just not worth it. But also what you said is very interesting in terms of a lot of the copy that you put out there. I think it tries to tell you what you can expect, right? Analyze, automate, optimize, increase this, reduce that. It's always that, right? But I do think that these are certain things that people should be given a chance to experience for themselves, right? Me telling you, Subha, writing 3 blogs is really going to change your life is probably not going to, I have to show you, I have to tell you that this is what happened in the past. I have to, maybe if it's a product, especially give you a demo, because a lot of times people are coming with certain baseline expectations today, like, would you go to an email marketing tool and see whether they will allow you to upload a database in bulk? Like, I would assume that that's the whole point. Right?
Yeah. No, very true that a lot of things today have become baseline and very much hygiene factor, correct?
Yeah.
And I think that's important to remember, that you also have to then keep, like you said, is there a good test for whether your landing page copy is making an impact? Like, unleash your potential worked maybe 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Today, everybody is just done and dusted with unleashing their potential. So what am I going to talk about? What's that hook going to be today, and what's the good test of that hook?
Sure. So there is a test, thankfully. It may or may not apply in all contexts and use cases. Again, we have to use these things with a little bit of discretion, I would say. Don't just apply it blanket to everything. But 70-80% of the time it works. And that is if you look at your headline, as soon as you land on a page, and you put 3 words in front of it before as a prefix, and that is now you can. Then the headline. Now you can what? And it's quite surprising. I don't know if it's a very B2B thing. Most companies fail this test because I was looking at examples. I have been on the receiving end of a lot of product demos, and I felt the pain that I think some of my clients experience as well. And it's quite interesting because a lot of promises made are broken on the landing pages. And the first place where it happens is actually that headline. And I can't help but think, what is the need to complicate it so much? I was actually looking at a tool called Workable in the context of some research that we were doing. And the headline says, big ideas, amazing talent, the recruitment software that brings them together. It's a good headline. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's not really telling me anything. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm curious, but so what? Right. And the funny thing is, right underneath, they have a small subheader which says, find and hire the right person for every job.
So that's a great, now you can, right? Now you can do this. Like that's fundamentally why you have landed here, and we can help you do that.
Exactly, right. And just think about the many different ways you can play with it, right? Like, obviously, if you say find and hire the right person for every job, it's generic in the sense that it's very common to say that, right? So maybe you can even add a little bit of personality to it, and that's where content becomes copy, right? You say, for once, find and hire the right person for every job, right? And people are reading it like that in their minds. It's not that we are just consuming mindlessly top to bottom. So yeah, I think the now you can test is definitely a good one, but it's also scary. The reason I say it has to be used with discretion is because it's not going to work unless you've already spent some time thinking about the customers, your audience. What is the flow through which people are going to come land on this website? And how much context will they have before they get there? Like, I would think that HR tech is a crowded space, right? And there is enough and more, and everyone's trying to solve similar problems to some extent, especially on the recruitment side of things. So when you know that it's a crowded market, the likelihood is that people will come to you from review aggregators. People may come to you because they attended a forum where other HR tech presenters were also there. So when there's that much noise, keep it simple, really. Like, just get down to the basics.
Yeah. No, I think this keeping it simple. There's this need to show that you are in the business and you know the terminology and you know the acronyms. But ultimately, if let's say for the MailChimps and the MailerLites and OmniSends of the world, a lot of small business owners, small to medium business owners are your target market.
Yeah.
All right. So when we land on your page, if you throw a lot of jargon, like you can double your ABC with our XYZ kind of stuff, then I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know that I'm supposed to look at some of these metrics, right? So throwing the metrics as a selling point, then you've lost me there itself, because you're an email marketing tool, talk in plain English, and then when the person is getting more engaged and maybe looking at your pricing plan or looking for a demo or something else, or looking at the various functionalities that you offer, then get into some of these important details.
I think we fall back on numbers so much because it's tempting to be on the certainty bandwagon, right? Like, in my mind, a 30% improvement in existing processes is not something that you need to talk about on a landing page. If you're not efficiently optimizing, then why are you even doing it? Right? That's a product challenge you really have to think about. But there are use cases where I would use numbers. Like, if there is a tool that I can use that will make me do something in days instead of months or weeks, that's a number that I want to put out there, right? If your numbers are in the high 90s, like 95% improvements, 96% improvements, and there are products that have those kinds of numbers, then by all means have a number, right? But numbers without context is just me filling the page up, like, 3x faster. Somehow I've gotten, maybe it's a very individual thing as well, but I've gotten over it. It's just not registering anymore. I think we are living in a world of too much noise.
Yeah, too much data to process, and sometimes the numbers make you feel like what they're showing you is either much smaller than you are or much bigger than you are, and so they're not the right partner
Exactly,
for
right.
you.
So that's where you have to tell the story. Like, it's not okay anymore to just throw three numbers at somebody and say, okay, this is our social proof. No. How are those three numbers happening? What are you doing that's making that happen, right? And that's the story that a landing page really, I mean, see, when done well, it is a powerful tool, right? Like, you've cohesively told a story, you've done the 4 or 5 things that you need to do to get it to a logical conclusion. Then it's a good investment, and that's why people spend so much. And also operationally, landing pages are created specific usually to every campaign, every paid ad that you run. So in your example, Subha, the easiest email marketing tool should ideally be leading to a different landing page than email marketing tool for 2000 plus subscribers, because those are two very different needs and contexts, right? And therefore you have a separate page built for each of those contexts. Yeah.
Correct. So each of those becomes the in a way the critical landing page for that use case, the person who will
Correct.
land there, right? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, that makes sense. Then um it doesn't seem like it should be too difficult, but I feel like too many landing pages just fail in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the kind of top few big do nots that you generally see?
Do nots. Okay. Top few big do nots. That's going to be difficult because there are a lot of top many do nots. But I'm just thinking if you're very heavy, especially on the paid campaign side, since that's what we're talking about, uh, keep adding and retiring landing pages all the time. Stay on top, because you don't want to have created 200-300 of them and they're just floating around the internet being ghosts well after they've served their purpose. That would be on the slightly more technical side of things, but more basic. Even if you had 2 or 3 pages, optimize for the customer. Think about where are the 2-3 places that they're coming in from, right? And don't, I think you asked me for don'ts and I'm telling you the do special. Like, don't make promises that are too basic. No, I mean,
True. It should feel like you're worth the effort, to scroll, subscribe,
yeah.
look at things.
Yeah, like, I'm just thinking, and again, this is a mistake that a lot of service businesses seem to make, because our proof is in the operations. No, we don't have much to showcase upfront. Like, I mean, if I had to make a sales pitch to you, then the best I can do is tell you about past case studies, right? But and therefore, without that proof of concept, I think we fall back on things like high performance teams, efficient operations. I mean, my thinking is that without them, anyway, there's no business. With a low
Those are
performance
good
team,
for
there's
you.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
and the high performance team and an efficient process, and those are good for you, but and
what's
hence
in
your
it for
customer
me?
will. But yeah,
Y-
what's in it for the to be customer?
yeah, so I think that's where another simple test that can be applied is as opposed to what. So if you have a features list of 10 things, just read it out and say as opposed to what, right?
Oh wow.
And very quickly 5-6 will go out, right? And the remaining 3-4 are probably actually worth spending time on and kind of espousing. And we've done that so many times in so many workshops, because that I think, and this is where I am going to also air one of my pet peeves, is that don't, if you've hired an expert to write your copy, then don't mess with their process. Like, they've done it multiple times. You're bringing them in for that objectivity first and foremost, right? So if they are telling you that this is not important enough to put on a homepage, then they're probably right. Right. The other, so how do you do it? Now, that's a don't. But if you had to, gun to head, give feedback on a landing page, I think just try and put a friend next to yourself and let them navigate it, let them see, experience it, and make notes. Right. So when someone who's completely away from the context, but is somehow relevant, like, don't find completely random friends, but someone who may potentially use that service at some point. And if they were reading it, and how do they navigate it? Like, are they able to reach the right sections? Are they completely skipping through some of the sections that you thought were important? Just doing that exercise can sometimes be very illuminating, I find.
No, I think getting a lot of feedback in the early stages is important. Like you said, someone who has some connection or some interest or even knowledge of what you're
Yeah,
trying to put out there. Because I think you're probably beyond the point of just feedback for the sake of feedback. You're saying, hey, if you were a potential customer and you landed here, what would you think? How would you act? What would you do? And what is missing for you? Right. And I think
correct.
um, for all of for our websites and the various versions that we've held in the past, that's been very useful to say, hey, when you land here, what did you think? What do you think I offer, or what do you
Yeah,
think my
so true.
service is? What
Yeah,
do you think I don't do, or who do you think is my audience? Right? Some very, I think landing pages. What you started out saying, that the simplicity is just so important. Uh,
true. And you'll be surprised by some of the feedback that you get. That's why I find so much value in showing it to the world outside. Because when we launched the website for Motley Crue, we were obviously very proud of it, and we'd built it in house, and we'd done it in 4 days, which is record time for a website. And then somebody did get back and say that maybe you are highlighting the wrong thing. In terms of the industry font was a lot bigger than the service font. So if it said brand strategy manufacturing, the manufacturing was just visually bigger and brand strategy was smaller. And I would never have spotted that. Like, I'm eternally grateful to the person who came up and said that, because we are not highlighting the manufacturing, we are highlighting the brand strategy side of things, right? And just by switching up those two things, it made such a difference. I mean, I could see it immediately after we made the change. So it is important to kind of have that outside in perspective. Also, not from too many people, but like some people.
yeah, no, it has to be. No, that makes sense. um Okay, so then assume I kind of go and relook at my pages, figure out, what my landing page should look like, what's the call to action, etc. Then
Yeah.
what can be my realistic expectation? How well, because kind of going back to our email bit, we know that you're lucky if you get a click rate of in the low 20s, right, for
Yeah.
most industries, right? So in landing pages, what could be a realistic expectation of the kind of action folks will take?
I think you do want them to fill a form, or you want them to get in touch with you somehow. Some people do encourage newsletter signups as well, especially if it's a very early interaction. No one's going to fill a form and say, okay, hey, I'm ready for this, right? So in those cases, maybe you may want to take them to a different content piece, nurture them, engage them somehow. Realistic expectation, to be honest, it's different from industry to industry. You can only benchmark it against the standard that your competitors already are at. And I would look at how do I get there, right? So you've built a new shiny landing page. You probably changed a lot of design elements. Always test one thing at a time. So don't change the headline and the call to action and the placement of various elements. So if you do all this and something works, you don't know what worked, right? So might as well just do one thing at a time, or even A/B test. Have one headline in one version and one headline in a different one. See if that makes a difference. Put your calls to action in different places, highlight them in different ways, see if that works. And you do have to continuously test. And also, it's a very dynamic thing. Just because it worked today doesn't mean it will work tomorrow. Because the more fatigued people get, right? And this is true of this industry itself, in the sense that if I've seen the same thing in 10 places, then the novelty is lost, right? So I'm going to have to run that race in terms of keeping up with new trends, or even being the trendsetter in some ways. So interestingly, when we built an entire website, and it was full of landing pages for solutions, for platforms, for a B2B tech product, the highest amount of conversion we got was from the Typeform chat. And I know exactly why as well, because yes, the website did its job. It was a very compelling story. So all that layering had happened. The first question that we put on the type form wasn't, hey, what's your name? Like, lots of people open with, what's your name? What's your email address? But we just said, hey, what are you here for today? And then we gave people 3 very distinct options to choose from. Now, how do you put those 3 options? Because you've spent enough time in sales calls, you've spent enough time getting to know the customer. So you know exactly what kinds of questions they have on their minds. And that's the reason why conversion was, frankly, wildly better than I had expected. And it was fully organic. So that was a huge win.
No, makes sense. I think it's going to be a bit of trial and error, right? I think we have to be ready for that too. That you have to keep seeing what's bringing it in, what's attractive to your audience, and that itself may change. Like today, we were talking about the email tool sites, right? Like there's some basic expectations, and then you want maybe certain kind of automation, and maybe you want it to write the email for you, right? That's also possible.
Eventually. Yeah, that's very possible. Yeah.
So yeah, to be able to keep up with the times, and it's the landing page is definitely not a permanent page.
Definitely not. And that's why you have so much leverage to play around with it, right? So go crazy. I mean, yeah. At lower expenses.
Sounds good. Let me try out a few of these things for my next, event.
Now it's time for the much awaited topic, Al.
So things are getting a little exciting in the AI space, I hear, Hasita. And now I'm getting excited. Like, can these email tools or whoever or whatever actually write out a lot of content for me? Especially if these emails, cold call emails that I just don't want to write.
They can. And that's just the TLDR reality of it all, right? Like they actually can. I have been surprised by the capabilities of this new tool that's kind of taking LinkedIn by storm. It's called ChatGPT. And, it's one thing to churn out content, it's completely another to contextualize it and add a bit of nuance to it, which it's doing so well. I can't say I can't believe it. This was a future. It's been coming for a while now. It's not that, suddenly there's a chat GPT out there today. But it's exciting times, I think, for everyone in the copy and content spaces. One way to look at it, of course, is that it'll take away a lot of jobs. And probably, if an AI tool can do what a human being does in 5 minutes, would you still work with a human being, right? Like I know for a fact that I wouldn't. But that said, but that said, I've been on the writing side of things, and as you know, I still write landing page copy myself for a lot of clients that we work with. And I found that to be an extremely illuminating experience, because the other day we are working with an AI/ML client, and I was kind of struggling to write some of their headlines, because it was not feeling very natural to me. It was not feeling very organic. And then I just put in 2-3 prompts. I started playing with this tool. And I put in a prompt saying, explain, ML ops to me in as simple a language as possible. And the response that I got, it literally opened with, most ML models never make it to production, which I thought was such an on-point problem statement that it had captured. So I took that and I then immediately changed it to the most revolutionary ML model maybe sitting on a shelf right now. And I see that that's such a cohesive way of human machine interactions. And I'm so excited for what else is possible, because it's already like brainstorming with another person in the room. So it's all very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it just, I think if you look at it that way, if you have that perspective, that it's not like many times we think of it as I've outsourced my writing to somebody.
Yeah.
Not even somebody, I have something, right? It's not even a person. And so then you have a lot of apprehensions, and you even talk to it very differently. But if you think of it as another person in the room, because that thing has learned from people and people's behavior.
And that's very valuable.
Yeah, you'll have a lot. Your outlook really does become a little more positive and hopeful. And you could have, I think, a more valuable conversation with that thing
tool or that platform. Thing/person is pretty much what it is. So this particular processor is called Da Vinci. And I quite like that everyone in AI is trying to humanize it as much as possible, so that we don't absolutely freak out at the possibilities that it presents. Yeah.
No, I think a lot of these names are meant to make us feel like you can trust it, right? Like DALI and now Da Vinci.
Yeah. Yeah,
There
like,
was
oh,
one-
I'm brainstorming with Da Vinci. Can you imagine? Like, it's a nice way of thinking about it. And also, see, as a business owner, you have to write brief documents. You were talking about blogs earlier, right? In fact, it could be such a nice way of outsourcing, because now you're using a tool like this to also prompt some thought in terms of, hey, give me a positive take on XYZ. And then, hey, give me a negative perspective on XYZ. And you read all that and you suddenly have enough content to give someone a good brief, right? You can even say, hey, I kind of came across these various different opinions, and this is how I feel about it. And therefore, can you please help me write something on those lines? And then please tell the other person also that there's a tool involved so that they can also use it and come up with some, and people are just having so much fun with it. People are rapping like Eminem. People are, talking like Jane Austen. All sorts of interesting use cases are showing up. Yeah.
No, I think truly interesting times. We have to move with it.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of content kind of generate. There's a lot of content generation that even today is happening using maybe more simplistic versions of such tools, right? Which we've tried a few, which you give a topic and it gives you a kind of an outline, or say,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
this
So to be
topic you
honest,
can
I've
cover.
I've actually never found a lot of value in them. I mean, they do a lot of the research, the heavy listing, they write the intros, the conclusions and things. But somehow, and in fact, one of the tools I tried is called Jarvis. And the reason I paid for it is because that's Iron Man's butler. I literally just signed up for that one reason and that one reason only. And it was actually a very disappointing experience. But this is open source. This is just free. I mean, anybody can go. We should add a link in the show notes, in fact, so that everybody can just play around with it. And you can do it on your laptop. You can do it on your mobile phones. And sometimes it's just nice to know that you're not in a black box, like it's nice to be able to have something else where you're bouncing off ideas. And if, humans and machines can achieve that together, I see that as an absolute win.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, we can all, like, it takes a village, and let this
Let this be the village, right? Yeah, I mean, it's learned enough for several villages, so might as well just use it, everything that it's learned. Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to throw you a challenge. Maybe you try and see if you can have one paragraph in the show notes written by.
Yeah, why not? That would be so interesting. We should try that.
Yeah. Sounds good. Catch you next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode on all things landing pages, copy, conversion copy minus conversion, and all sorts of weird and wonderful combinations. We do hope this episode has been helpful in terms of getting you thinking about landing pages. The subject itself is extremely vast and diverse. And the truth is that to make one landing page work, you need a team of experts, UX designers, developers, content people, copy people, business perspective, insight, analytics, so much of it. But there are ways to simplify. Some easy ways to build landing pages will be linked in the show notes as well. And if you have any questions for us, you do know where to find us. Do give our podcast a follow, and see you next time.